Hello and welcome to Into Vietnam Weekend. I'm Tô Anh. In this program, we'll bring you comprehensive news on Vietnam's economy throughout the week, ending August the 7th, and following our major stories. Interest rates could be reduced to between 17 to 19% per annum from next month. Total money supply was estimated at 2,500 trillion dongs. And our conversation with Howell, CEO of Prudential Vietnam. But first, let's have a look at figures of the week. Vietnam's total money supply was estimated at 2,500 trillion dongs, or around $121.4 billion. These are statistics conducted by the State Bank of Vietnam from early 2011 to the end of July. Statistics from the State Bank of Vietnam showed that total money supply of the country was estimated at 2,500 trillion dongs from early 2011 to the end of July. Among the total money supply, 2,100 trillion dongs, or $101 billion, were kept at the local banks under the form of deposits, and the rest is on circulation. The central bank also reduced the target of money supply growth this year to 15 to 16% from the earlier projection of 21 to 24%. Corporate deposits of the banking system fell to 156.7 trillion dongs, or $7.64 billion as of May the 23rd, and individuals deposit about 107.3 trillion dongs. The local economic experts recommended that the central bank should raise money supply to improve the local bank's liquidity. The action is expected to pave the way for the local lenders to cut interest rates. Vietnam targets to keep the country's inflation rate at 15 to 17% and at a single-digit figure in 2012.
The Vietnam Steel Association said steel consumption of the domestic market has fallen significantly since the second quarter, resulting in a huge amount of inventories of nearly 600,000 tons. This has been the biggest number so far. The association added, given the rising inflation, the government should take tough measures to stabilize the macroeconomy. At the same time, the government is recommended to offer some tax incentives to local steel manufacturing companies to help them boost their exports.
State-owned Group Electricity of Vietnam, or EVN, said it made a loss of more than 3 trillion dongs in the first 6 months of this year. The reasons was attributed to the fact that the current electricity prices were not enough to cover the cost for EVN to make profits. EVN now earn a debt of 10 trillion dongs with Vietnam National Oil and Gas Group, or Petro Vietnam, and Vietnam National Coal and Mineral Industries Holding Corporation, or Vinacomin. We now move on to securities news. Vietnamese stock performed mixed during the trading week. VN Index bounced back to over 400 thresholds after several dropping sessions. HNX Index experienced its ever low at 67.35. Liquidity strongly rebounded on both quarters.
On Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange, VN Index fell for the first 3 trading days before strongly rebounding on Thursday and Friday. The benchmark closed the week at 400.88, down 4.82 points or 1.18% from last Friday. Trading volume averaged 41.76 million shares and fund units, totaling 747 billion dongs per trading session. The figures surged 96% in volume and 101 in value from last week. On Hanoi Stock Exchange, HNX Index experienced an unprecedented low as it fell to 67.35 points on Tuesday. The index sank 1.01 points or 1.45% from last Friday to close the week at 68.54. Trading volume rose 50% in volume and 30% in value, averaging 27.3 million shares or 259 billion dongs per trading session. Circular 74, the local government, has officially taken effect since August the 1st. However, it couldn't stimulate the domestic market as it did in May. The stock market plunged right on the first 3 trading sessions of this month. Besides, continual record high domestic gold prices strongly affected investor sentiment. Foreign investors were net sellers on Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange, but net sellers on the northern bourse of the trading week. They offloaded 1.7 million units, totaling $224 billion on the primary bourse. Meanwhile, they net purchased $6.4 billion worth of 1 million shares on Hanoi Stock Exchange.
In the next part of the program, we'll take a look at major macroeconomic and investment events during the past week.
Newly appointed governor of the State Bank of Vietnam, Nguyễn Văn Bình, said interest rates would decrease to between 17 to 19% per annum for next month. The move is aimed to tackle high interest rate pressures on local enterprises. He added that a series of economic measures would be introduced this month. He also said given Vietnam's forex reserve having risen by nearly $4 billion, the central bank is now in the positions to intervene if forex fevers occurs.
Hanoi Department of Planning and Architecture recently announced plans for an urban rail system. The blueprints include two sections with 8 km long overground and 4 km long underground metro lines. The project will have a total investment of 783 million euros, including a 280 million ODA loan from France. There will be 8 metro stations located from Nhon to Hanoi Railway Station. The project will start in late September and is expected to go into operations in 2016 to improve transport in the city.
Shanghai Auto and Hyundai Motors of South Korea on August 4th signed an agreement to jointly manufacture auto engines. Under the agreement, Shanghai Auto and Hyundai Motors will set up a joint venture to build an automobile engines manufacturing factory. The factory will be built on an area of 20 hectares at Chu Lai Economic Zone in the central province of Quảng Nam. The factory, with the capacity of 25,000 products per year, will have the total investment of $165 million. The factory is expected to be put into operations in 2012.
The Ministry of Finance on Tuesday issued a circular which clarifies that an export tax of 10% can be imposed on jewelry with gold purity of more than 80%. The circular is expected to minimize exports of unprocessed gold and also help prevent gold traders using loopholes to avoid tax. Currently, gold jewelry with a purity of more than 99% is supplied 10% tax. General Department of Customs said in the first 6 months of the year, Vietnam exported 24 tons of gold, mostly jewelry, worth a total of $1.2 billion, up 133% on year.
In the third quarter of this year, the State Bank of Vietnam plans to auction $1 trillion to $2 trillion of government bonds each sessions, the first and the third weeks each month. Meanwhile, government bonds auctions organized by the Hanoi Stock Exchange will be held every Thursday, with $2 trillion to $4 trillion worth of bonds each sessions. Underwritings will be conducted after the Ministries of Finance announces the named list of underwriters in 2011. The underwriting is expected to take place every 2 Thursdays with $2 trillion to $4 trillion of bonds offered each sessions.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development recently lowered its previous forecast of export revenue in 2011 of some agricultural products. The traded export figures were attributed to recent difficulties in exports of seafood, coffee, and rubber. Forecast of seafood export was reduced to $6.1 billion, $80 million lower than the previous target. Rubber export revenue was also attributed to reach $3.7 billion instead of the previous forecast of $3.739 billion. Meanwhile, export volume of coffee was forecast to reach 1.2 million tons this year, 0.1 million tons lower than the former projection. The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development attributed the adjusted figures to difficulties in supply sources and the global market conditions that major export products of Vietnam are facing. On the other hand, the forecast the rice export revenue was kept unchanged at $7.4 billion. Pepper was only export item that was altered to rise to $800 million, an increase of $7 million compared with the previous forecast. A new circular on export tax of cola by the Ministry of Finance will be effective this month. The circular is expected to deal with the current shortage of cola in the domestic market. The Ministry of Finance issued a new circular and tax rate of exporting all types of cola. Specifically, the export taxes could be raised to 20% from the current rate of 15%. The move is expected to address the recent shortage of coal to fuel several thermal power plants of the country, which had led the Southeast Asian country to import the minerals. Export tariffs on other natural resources like brass, aluminium, and lead also will be raised from next month. The circular will be effective from September the 11th. The Ministry of Industry and Trade said it would build a strategy on cola imports and exports soon to ensure energy security of the country. Coal demand of the South Asian country was estimated to reach 54 million tons in 2015 and 150 million tons in 2020. And following is some foreign trade news.
Data from the Vietnam Food Association showed Vietnam exported over 636,300 tons of rice, totaling $305 million in July. Asian market made up 50% of the rice export during the month. The July figure brought the country's total rice exports in the first 7 months to over 4.5 million tons, valued at over $2 billion. Vietnamese traders did increase their rice export in both volume and value, while some large rice exporters in the global market tended to reduce their shipments.
Vietnam exported 101,800 tons of shrimp, totaling $971.1 million in the first 6 months of the year. The figure rose 16.9% in volume and 35.2% in value against the same period of last year, representing the highest growth in the sector. During the period, prawn export hit $611.2 million, worth of 56,000 tons, up 30.9% in value and 15% in volume. Meanwhile, Vietnamese white shrimp exports surged 37.7% in volume and 72.5% in value to 31,000 tons, totaling $248.4 million. Average price of shrimp export was also grew by 15.6% on year to $9.3 per kilo in the same period.
Vietnam imported over $1.1 billion worth of feed materials in the first 6 months of this year, up 0.88% on year. The situation is blamed for the use of domestic materials for biofuel. India, Argentina, and the US were major suppliers of Vietnam animal feeds and feed materials in the period. Particularly, imports from India posted the highest value of $350.8 million, equaling 29.8% of the total figure. Last year, Vietnam imported 12.4 million tons of feed materials, totaling $2.7 billion. The figure is forecast to reach $3 billion this year.
Vietnam's FDI sector posted $3.85 billion worth of import value in July, raising the total import spending of FDI firms to $25.4 billion in 7 months, up 29.5% on year. Between January and July, the sector imported $3.27 billion of computers and electronic devices, representing a year-on-year increase of 26%. At the same time, imports of components and equipment totaled $8.34 billion, up 11% on year. The FDI sector saw a trade deficit of $1.7 billion in the first 7 months of the year. The underdeveloped supporting industry of Vietnam has hindered the growth of many foreign businesses in the country over the past few years. It also badly affects their competitiveness and enlarged trade deficits of the local economy as well. Our in-depth report this week will bring you a deeper understanding about the situation.
Vĩnh Phúc province, with favorable geographical conditions and attractive investment incentives, has welcomed many big foreign investors like Toyota and Honda. The situation requires the huge provision of supporting components for the foreign companies. However, the local supply remains low, forcing foreign businesses to import the components.
Có thể nói là cái sự phát triển của các doanh nghiệp phụ trợ và doanh nghiệp công nghệ cao thì nó hiện nay có thể nó là bước đầu, chưa đáp ứng được cái mong muốn của cái nhà sản xuất chính. Tôi nói ví dụ như công ty Honda, chúng tôi thống kê có khoảng 400 doanh nghiệp phụ trợ, kể cả trong và ngoài nước. Nguyên trong nước thì có 84 doanh nghiệp phụ trợ của họ, nhưng mà trên Vĩnh Phúc thì chúng tôi mới có 7 doanh nghiệp phụ trợ của công ty Honda. Hoặc là công ty Toyota cũng có rất nhiều cái doanh nghiệp phụ trợ. Nhưng mà trên địa bàn Vĩnh Phúc thì mới có một vài cái doanh nghiệp phụ trợ.
At present, foreign invested enterprises are holding quite a big share in Vietnam's industry, demanding a big number of supporting components. However, these enterprises are importing components for their production due to low supply from the domestic market. The FDI sector posted high and growing import value in recent years. In the first 6 months of this year alone, this sector's trade deficit hit $1.83 billion, equaling 27% of the country's trade deficit. The situation was partly due to the slow development of the domestic supporting industry.
Việc thiếu một cái hệ thống công nghiệp phụ trợ, một chuỗi những sản phẩm, những cái ngành công nghiệp phụ trợ, và điều này nó ảnh hưởng trực tiếp tiêu cực đến nền kinh tế theo rất nhiều khía cạnh. Trước hết nó làm gia tăng cái lượng hàng nhập từ nước ngoài, và từ đó nó làm gia tăng nhập siêu, làm khan hiếm hơn cái nguồn ngoại tệ, cũng như làm giảm bớt công ăn việc làm và giảm bớt cái giá trị gia tăng mà Việt Nam sản xuất. Thứ hai là nó khiến cho một số doanh nghiệp của nước ngoài không tổ chức sản xuất ở Việt Nam được, bởi vì thiếu những cái sản phẩm, thiếu những cái nền công nghiệp hỗ trợ cho họ sản xuất. Và điều đấy khiến cho Việt Nam chỉ thu hút được những cái doanh nghiệp vừa và nhỏ trên thế giới, chứ không có được những tập đoàn lớn, những cái thương hiệu mạnh và sản xuất ở Việt Nam. Và Việt Nam rất dễ bị ảnh hưởng nhạy cảm bởi những chấn động thế giới.
Manufacturing and processing sector is the most attractive sector for investment in Vietnam, which demands a huge amount of supporting components. The vast imports of components might affect the competitiveness of the local business community and the attractiveness of the local environment.
Phải nói rằng là công nghiệp phụ trợ là một nền công nghiệp rất quan trọng, nó góp phần vào để chúng ta giảm nhập siêu. Hàng năm thì như các bạn đã biết, các cái số liệu các bạn có trong tay là một năm chúng ta phải nhập siêu, các nhà máy của chúng ta ở Việt Nam, hoạt động ở Việt Nam là nhập siêu $30 triệu. Trong khi đó khi những ngành công nghiệp phụ trợ của chúng ta phát triển, tạo được công ăn việc làm cho những người dân, rồi chúng ta xây dựng các nhà máy, chúng ta tăng nguồn thuế, thì chúng ta đã giải quyết được cơ bản rất nhiều vấn đề khi chúng ta có công nghiệp phụ trợ.
Vietnam has set its sights on becoming an industrialized country by 2020. The target would be more reachable for the country as long as it has a developed supporting industry.
Vietnam remains a lucrative life insurance market for foreign investors despite its tough economic situation. The statement is made by Jack Howell, CEO of Prudential Vietnam. In the business talk this week, he will tell us more about the local life insurance market as well as his business strategy here.
Thank you for joining our program today. As you may know that many sectors in Vietnam have been affected by some macroeconomic issues like rising inflation or high interest rates. So what about the life insurance market?
The life insurance market continues to see very strong growth in Vietnam. Life insurance is a long-term product. So when the economy has difficulties or even just little bubbles in the economy, life insurance continues to do quite well because people are thinking about the future and they're planning for the future. they're planning for their children's education. They're not planning for, the trip to the grocery store tomorrow. So we've seen very good growth in the first half of this year, and we continue to see very strong growth in the business, even in a difficult economy.
At present, many clients have cancelled the insurance policy, especially long-term insurance policy, due to rising inflation. So what is Prudential doing to convince your clients to keep the insurance policies?
Obviously, when banks are offering very high rates of deposit, some customers, see the opportunity to put the money in the bank instead of paying their premiums, which is a very short-term, way of thinking. It's not thinking about the long term. So for those few cases where we do see people surrendering, we offer them a number of different options in order to keep their policy with us. The first step is obviously to educate the customer, because often we find some customers may not understand the implications of not paying their insurance policy. They may not appreciate the fact that they lose their coverage, and it has a long-term impact on the future savings. And then it's about offering financial alternatives for the customer to help them deal with the situation, whether that's a policy loan against the existing policy or other ways that we can help them continue to make payments on the policy. But we're actually quite proud of our record here in terms of persistency, and our customers seem to really appreciate the value of the insurance that they bought from us and tend to keep it on the books.
So from Prudential worldwide perspective, how to compare the local market here, the market in Vietnam?
It's very important. When you look at the strategy of Prudential and you look at the different businesses that Prudential has worldwide, you have to continually think about where do you find growth. And the wonderful thing about Vietnam is it is a growing market. It's a maturing market. So from a global perspective, Prudential sees Vietnam not only as a big market today, because it is a very big market for Prudential, but as a very, very big market in the future. And as we see insurance penetration rates go up, as we see income continue to rise, we think that this market will become a bigger and bigger part of our portfolio.
From what you said before, I see that the Vietnamese insurance market is seen as, a very lucrative target for foreign investors and Prudential as well. So as more foreign players are coming in the local market, what are you doing to make Prudential stand out from the crowd?
You're right. Every day there are more competitors in this market. And I think that we're not alone to recognize the attractiveness of Vietnam. In order for us to protect our share, there are a number of different things that we focus on. First and foremost is trying to expand and capitalize on our customer service network, whether that be through our own offices or through our GA offices. It's making sure that we are servicing our customers everywhere. So if we have a customer out in the provinces, they can walk into a Prudential office and get the same level of service that you would get here in Ho Chi Minh City. The second thing we obviously focus on is on our distribution. Our agents are delivering our product to our customers. They represent Prudential to their friends, to their family, to their neighbors. So it's very important that we give our agents the education that they need. We continually inform them of new products and what's happening in the economy and what their customers can do in order to better manage in these economic times. And in addition to our agency distribution, we have an entire partnership distribution channel, which is distribution through banks, distribution through DM, TM, and those channels are becoming increasingly important for us as new ways for us to reach our customers, and we see that as a real future growth market here in Vietnam. So there are a number of different things we're focusing on externally from a customer perspective, but then at the same time we have to focus on ourselves.
So you are not only investing in technology, but also in human capital, right? So, and human resource is always a problem for insurance firms in Vietnam due to the lack of highly qualified personnel. So what are you doing to keep your talented staff?
Yeah, well, you say, as you rightly mentioned, it's a problem, but a problem is also an opportunity if you turn it around and look at it from a different angle. And of course, we are viewed as a training ground for the life insurance industry. With almost 1,600 employees, when new competitors come into this market, they look to hire our staff because they have the training, they have the experience, and they have the local knowledge. And so clearly, we are a place where people come for talent. My view on how to retain and develop and attract people is not about putting in blocks, to keep competitors out, but it's about trying to offer your employees and your people access to something, above and beyond what anyone else can give them. There are a number of studies that have been done to look at the turnover rate within organizations, and they usually range anywhere between 18 to 22% turnover within financial services companies in Vietnam, which is not an unhealthy number, but it is a little bit high. And we find ourselves significantly below that, which again points to the fact that employees are happy with the opportunities they're given, and they look to stay with the business and develop with the business going forward.
I see that attracting people is difficult, but it's even more difficult to keep people. So could you please tell us one specific example of what Prudential is doing to keep your talented staff?
Okay, I can give you two. We have what we call a talent program, which we use to work with our employees who we think have very high potential, and that gives them access to a number of different services within the company. And the second is we're developing a learning center in Prudential Vietnam, where we will dedicate an entire floor of one of our buildings to the education of our customers. And we'll develop a learning center there where there'll be opportunities for them to take different types of classes, to take different types of both insurance-related, financial services-related, and non-financial services-related type of educational programs. And get degrees. And we think that is a real differentiator for us. And because of our large number of employees and because of our large network, we can actually offer that facility to our customers.
Thank you very much for the information about the Vietnamese insurance market, as well as sharing with us about your company's plan in Vietnam. And once again, thank you very much for joining our program today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
The conversation has concluded our program this week. Thank you for watching. For comments and feedback, send us an email at intovietnam@vietv.vn or call us at 0422208288 or 0983566844. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tune in for our daily evening news.